What is raising the debt ceiling, and why is it suddenly extremely important? Well, it's important because for the first time in America's history, one political party is choosing to use the debt ceiling, the vote required to raise the debt ceiling, as political collateral to try and prevent the other side from having success. It's basically an opportunity to show Joe Biden as being an economic failure and to get Donald Trump re-elected. And that's what's happening as I speak. The negotiations are going on between the White House and senior MAGA Republicans to try and look for things to remove from future spending to somehow agree a negotiation for this current debt ceiling, which doesn't make any sense. And the reason it doesn't make any sense is because this debt is debts on previous spending. It's spending that Donald Trump did during his 4 years in office. It has nothing to do with future spending. And so to hold it hostage about future spending makes no sense because it has nothing to do with that. You can negotiate future spending at a later time. And let's be clear about what raising the debt ceiling actually means. It's just a kind of theatrical event. It doesn't have any true value because America is not allowed to default on its debts. Congress has to approve a raising of the debt ceiling. It always has. In fact, over the past 63 years, the national debt limit has been raised 49 times by Republicans and 29 times by Democrats, and 3 times during Trump's presidency, where, of course, he added $8 trillion to the national debt. The point is, this is not about the numbers. This is just a political stunt designed to make Joe Biden look bad and to get Donald Trump re-elected. And this is masterminded by the likes of Donald Trump because they have run out of policy ideas for getting elected, so all they can seek to do is claim that Joe Biden is incapable, and if they can crash the world economy while Joe Biden is in office, then that gives them the license to say that Biden was not fit for office, and therefore Donald Trump should return to the highest office in the land. And that in itself is fascism. That is very dangerous, isn't it? Taking or holding somebody hostage, a whole country hostage in this case, just for your own political power. It's not about free and fair vote. It's about lying to the electorate, creating some kind of visual stunt that gives the impression that something is happening when it isn't. And this is why Democrats are urging Joe Biden to apply the 14th Amendment, which gives him override, enables him to basically ignore this whole process of asking Congress to raise the debt ceiling and just lets him kind of bypass it and get on with paying the US's debts. And think about this, every country around the world takes in fewer dollars in terms of tax dollars than they spend because that's just unfortunately the way it goes. So national debt is something that pretty much every single country on the planet has to grapple with. And the US national debt is significant. But the US can afford to pay the interest on those debts. That is not in question. And that is why this whole thing is a stunt rather than based in kind of economic facts. So let's be very clear. Republicans have hijacked this process, this debt ceiling process, which is this thing that happens whenever it looks like the US is about to default, Congress raises the debt ceiling. It is not a problem. It is something that the country does and every country does. The only difference with the US is they've turned it into a theatrical event, that there has to be a vote on raising the debt ceiling. And many countries don't even bother with a vote. They just raise the debt ceiling. And unfortunately, because Republicans have decided to hijack this process, a process that ordinarily would never be played with because it's simply too dangerous to meddle with the debt ceiling. You just vote to raise it, everybody agrees, yep, we raise it, and we carry on. The reason they're doing this is because the infiltration of the Republican Party by these extremist MAGA Republicans, the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, she and Donald Trump, they don't care about the bigger picture. They might not even have the intellect to be able to understand the consequences of using the debt ceiling as political collateral. They might think it's funny They might enjoy the process. They'd do anything to own the libs and make Joe Biden look bad. But this isn't about Joe Biden. This is about the national debt. It belongs to everybody, Republicans and Democrats. And by turning it into a partisan event, they are running the risk of crashing the economy not just for Democrats, but for everybody. And what does a crash look like? I mean, it suddenly means that everything we buy will suddenly become more expensive. It means that services that we might rely on, like Medicaid or Meals on Wheels, will suddenly become unavailable. It has such a knock-on effect for everything. Everything is contingent on the debt ceiling being raised. And as boring a subject as it is, you don't want to wait around for the US to default to find out why it's such a serious thing. So, as of Thursday afternoon, 210 House Democrats had signed a discharge petition in the hopes of forcing a vote on the debt ceiling increase. Joe Biden, currently in Japan, is having his top White House negotiators negotiate with Kevin McCarthy and senior Republicans, Mitch McConnell and the like. Now, normally it goes up to the wire, and normally there's this whole kind of theatrical back and forth, and then at the 11th hour they agree, and then it just gets signed off, and America carries on doing its business. But it's different this time. We don't have, as Joe Biden says, your father's Republicans in Congress. These are extremist MAGA Republicans. These are people who are prepared to take such a gigantic risk with the U.S. economy. Anything they can do to make themselves look good and make the Democrats look bad, except this will backfire, because this is nothing to do with the Democrats. This is something that the whole country has to take on. It's a responsibility that belongs to every member of Congress to raise the debt ceiling. And the fact that it was done without question 3 times under Donald Trump, requiring Democrats' votes, doesn't seem to be something that they even care to think about. And it's a very unfortunate situation that a country as big as the United States is being held hostage by a handful of extremists in the Republican Party. And Kevin McCarthy, as you know, took 15 votes for him to get his speakership. He is at the mercy of the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene. These extremists have infiltrated the party, and he is being held hostage as well. This is about power, this is about control, and this is about getting Donald Trump re-elected in 2024. I'm Anthony Davis. You can catch me every day on the 5 Minute News podcast and on Sundays on the Weekend Show with Midas Touch.